So we're going to discuss what does it take to start and run a game studio in Finland. So I guess you guys are experienced. Would you please introduce yourself one by one? Well, you know Jiri, right? Okay.
Hi, Jiri Kupiainen. I was just on stage if you forgot already, so yeah.
All right.
I'm Jani Tietäväinen from CP Games. So CP Games placed in Lappeenranta, middle of St. Petersburg and Helsinki. We are about 5-year-old game studio. We are first-time runners, so everything is new for us.
How big is your studio?
About 10 people.
10 people. 5 years old, 10 people. Okay.
Hello, my name is Santeri Koivisto. I'm based in Tampere. My background is actually in classroom teaching. So I'm a bit of an odd bird here because I also have some connections to the EdTech, education technology field, but mainly working on the entertainment side. I have started 3 companies. One was a failure, one was an exit, and the third one is now going. We have 18 people working on that.
18 people, right? Okay.
Yes, hi, hello, Arto Käyhkö, Pollen VC. Actually, I would say, Santeri, that I'm an odd one out in this crowd here because, you know, we are not a game studio, we are funding game studios, so we are funding agency, funding game studios. But,
so you're looking for game studios to fund?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, so do you have all like a bag of money with you?
Hopefully, yes.
Okay.
Even after Brexit, because, you know, Pollen VC is actually a UK company originally.
Okay.
Located in Helsinki.
So how are you feeling? Like, are things still the same?
Too early to say, but I hope that they will remain the same.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. How international your companies are? It was like when we had the White Nights in Helsinki, and we were talking with Player Evan. They mentioned that they have people from different companies. And for me, for a person who works for a Russian development company, it was kind of a surprise, not even a surprise, I just didn't think about it. So when we work on games in Russia, we develop everything in Russian first. So everything is in Russian. And only after that, we localize it into different languages. Well, English first and then other languages. And then, like Player Evan, for example, what they do, they have all the communications in English. And the first language they implement is English. So what about your companies? How does it work? And why do you think one or the other is better?
Well, since I'm holding the microphone, I'll start. So we are 11 people right now, and 5 of those are Finns. So our first hire was a Russian guy, Alexei Mikhailov, great programmer. We have a guy from Azerbaijan, we have Vietnamese people, we have Portuguese people. So like the Finns are a minority in our company.
All of them live in Helsinki?
Everybody lives in Helsinki, yeah.
Okay. And so you communicate in English then?
Yeah, so I think we communicate in like a weird mix of like six languages. And like it sounds dumb and it's weird and it's really like kind of, if you're a new guy, it takes you like a month to learn the language, but it gets stuff done. And I mean, obviously everything we do is like all the documentation, all the emails, all the chats, like everything is in English first because like that's just how it has to be done.
Do you think it helps to, I don't know, for example, set everything for the global market from the very beginning, or it actually brings more problems into communication?
Well, I mean, the thing is like all the discussions, all the planning, everything is, we are growing as a company. So if we had like a planning document that was in Finnish, that would be trouble down the line. I mean, and also like, like our products are international. I mean, the business is international. Like, I think it would be really strange to do this in Finnish. I mean, maybe if everybody in the company was Finnish and maybe if we were only making games for the Finnish market, then yes, but I mean, that's not the reality of any company I know of.
Okay.
We have mostly Finnish people. We have one British, then we have one internship in Vietnamese, and sometimes we have had some people from Holland. But we use in daily communication partly Finnish, but I think the work itself, it's almost feels weird to use any other than English. Everything doesn't feel right.
Like personally, I really like this approach, but seriously, for Russian companies, it's weird to use not Russian because not everybody speaks English.
Yeah, but for us, because our audience, 5 million people speaking Finnish, they are not the audience in a mobile game business.
Right.
So it's mandatory for us to go outside, and English is like third language for us.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think that there is really a sustainable internal market for games in Finland. Neither there is a market for education for small businesses. So whatever we do, we have to go outside. So we develop in English. Our company language is English. We have from 18 people, we have one sitting in New York City, a very small satellite. 5 of us at the Tampere office are from. One is from Pakistan, one is from Iran, one is from UK.
All right.
Estonia.
Very international. I think it's a feature of Finnish companies, right? To have very international employees. Very different.
I would say that, and we are really, I would say, mixed in many ways. We also have like different minorities really present in the company and in many of the companies.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and as said, that Pollen VC is a UK company, so obviously our reporting languages and the company language is English. We have 22 people at the moment in payroll, from Mexicans to Dutch to Canadians to English, only 2 Finnish people, and I'm happy to say that we are actually this close to hire our first Russian colleague to our company, but she will be working in our New York office, so she will be stationed there.
Yeah, I think the reason Russian companies have Russian employees because there are a lot of Russians. I think, yeah, all kinds of.
I just gotta say, I mean, like I think it was mentioned a couple of times in the questions that it's so hard to hire people in Russia, and maybe if knowing Russian is a limitation, then maybe you should get rid of that.
But then again, we were discussing the salaries, for example. I mean, seriously, in Russia you pay in rubles. And in Finland, you apparently pay in euros, right? That's a difference. By the way, do you use like outsourcing a lot? Why won't you outsource to, I don't know, Russian artists, for example?
Well, for us, if there would be if our focus would be in Russian markets, whether that's games or the education side, we would definitely consider opening up like a 2 or 3 people satellite. That's something that we have been.
How is it connected? I mean,
sorry?
How is it connected? I mean, if you hire people that are from Russia, but they can, I don't know, make art for a global market, why not?
Well, I would say that for us it would be more on the sales, starting from the sales-focused people that are connected in that region that we are focusing. We are something that we have been planning for Portuguese and Spanish-speaking market is that we set up like a really small 2-3 people, a company, couple local from our network and couple moving from Finland to be building and focusing on growing our business in those language areas. And I would say that the same thing could easily happen in Russia.
Okay. Есть у кого-нибудь вопросы, может быть, к ребятам? Yeah, okay. Well, I'll have more questions, apparently. How did you start? Did you get investments, or did you have your own money, or I don't know, like how did it happen?
Should I? Well, I guess Shark Punch was kind of different because I mean we sold our previous company. So actually, we share many of the same founders that we had in the previous company, and obviously we made some money from Disney buying it. So we were in a pretty lucky position because we could actually be our own angel investors, which changes things because you're free to do whatever the hell you want. But of course, the flip side is that you are free to do whatever the hell you want, so you end up doing stupid stuff that might not really make a business, but it's kind of fun. And then you realize a year later, like, oh shit, like we need to get external funding and we need to focus. But that was pretty easy. And again, like we've leveraged Tegas funding heavily. And I think with Tegas, it's worthwhile to kind of keep building a relationship because Tegas was funding my previous company, but they're also funding this company, and it's a lot easier to work with them because they already know us from
in
before.
the end, what is better in your opinion, to get investments or to have your own funds?
Well, I think. Well, it depends on your business model. I mean, obviously, if you happen to make the next successful mobile game, with a team of 2 people, then good for you. But I think most companies today, most successful gaming companies today require a lot of capital. Maybe it's for user acquisition, or maybe for us, we're building a platform, so it just takes a lot of time. But I think most companies it's not possible to build them without external capital.
All right.
Yeah, I think for us, we started the company from passion to make games. We didn't have the early experience, and in that moment, it was really hard to find kind of some investors to invest our idea that we want to make games. So we pretty much started doing things free, so we didn't pay salaries for ourselves. We just started making things, and little by little we found some ways to make some money, to have more people in.
All right. Okay.
Well, the first one that I started was back when I was at school, university. I got 1,500 euros from my student loan and 1,000 from my mother's credit card. And
Did she know about it?
It takes about 2,900 euros to set up a limited company in Finland. I think that's about the minimum amount, including the paperwork and the capital you need to put in.
2,500?
Or 900, I would say.
Okay.
So the second one was once more me in school, getting my student allowance, getting an intern, because we didn't pay anything for the intern, who became our CTO. We were there together in this 250 euros a month. It wasn't even that. In Joensuu, really close to the Russian border. We were building our small product called Minecraft EDU, which sort of became a big thing. And we were just waiting. We were such a weird thing, building an indie game to education market that all the VCs were looking at like idiots that, hey, what are you guys doing? You are wasting your time. But then we ended up having like 15,000 schools, and then all the jokes were, exhausted. But then now the current one, we put 350,000 from the old company to the new one because we moved like a team to this new one too. We got about the same 350 from Tekes as a soft loan, and now the education edtech side helps us with this, but we also connected with a couple European Union projects, and we are looking at hopefully getting from 300 to 550,000 from European Union.
You need to tell me how that works.
Yeah, it's like 200 pages of documentations. You're better off by writing a book than writing those documents. But now we are working with university groups, so we are writing maybe 2 or 3 pages ourselves because the public organizations are so desperately in need of money. So it's easy for us just, come behind them.
All right, thank you. Arto, a different question for you. So how do you choose studios to fund them?
Well, basically, the first criteria I would say is that the studios are working on mobile apps or mobile titles. So you have to be on that mobile side. And
why?
Because, we are in the moment negotiating with Steam platform to be able to fund companies developing PC and console titles deployed through Steam, but at the moment we only can work with iOS, Android, and Amazon mobile games. So that's the first criteria.
Right.
The second would be obviously that you have to have an in-app purchases, or you have to have a kind of a premium model. There has to be something that you actually cash out from the platforms against that we can then fund your company or your sales. Those are the main criteria. Then obviously there will come loads of different kind of criteria from which area the company is coming from. At the moment we can work with Russian studios, but we have to work with Russian studios if they have their legal entities in Finland or Poland or some of the European Union countries. In the future, let's see if we can get our loan agreements localized here, then we could also work with studios who are only located in Russia. So then obviously different kind of risk types of the companies, how much they are doing the
I'd say that
sales.
mobile and free-to-play, it's like too wide. I mean, there are so many games, mobile and free-to-play, and, they have in-app purchases, but they don't earn anything. I think that's not what you want. How do you decide if they should they be already successful, or, you somehow can see the potential? How do you decide?
Yeah, Poland VC kind of looks at the whole kind of a lifetime of the company or game products per se. So there are different points where our funding services can be utilized. One, obviously, is the soft launch phase. When you are soft launching your game, then our services can be utilized. Obviously, if you are still kind of far away in the development cycle, then our funding services are not probably at the right moment for your company. But when you're doing your soft launch or when you're going close to a global launch, then Poland VC funding services are obviously much more attractive for you.
All right, thank you. Ну что, вопрос кто-нибудь из зала задаст? Приз дам.
Will there be any questions from the audience, from the floor?
My question is to Arto or maybe to Yuri also. What is the project of your dream? Maybe is there a project or a company you would fund without thinking? You will read the press release and you will say, "Oh man, take my money."
That's a good question. I've seen couple of times, or few times, you see that kind of metrics from the soft launches, that you are quite sure that we will fund this company, we will do it, even if they wouldn't like us to fund them, we will fund them because it's so attractive that if the metrics from the soft launching phase will give a clear signal that game will monetize, then obviously we would like to work with the company. But it's hard to say that it depends about the game and it depends about what markets they are looking for. But let's look at the metrics of your game or your future game.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of, I guess there's like two kinds of like really successful companies. There's the type that Arto is referring to, where it's it's a proven market, proven opportunity. It's a free-to-play mobile game or whatever, and you can just look at the metrics and know it's going to be big. And then there's the stuff that just sounds dumb until it's the biggest. I mean, like Uber, right? It's like, hey, we got this app where you can order a limousine. It's like, well, that's not going to be big. And now Uber is valued, what, $1 trillion, billion ish. So I think it's one of those. I mean, like the really great ideas always sound dumb until you just go and execute them.
You have another question?
Hello, my name is Mike. Actually, it's a question to everyone who willing to answer. Where it's better to get a fundraising or to go bootstrapped? Running on your own. What's your ideas?
Obviously, all the companies need to kind of bootstrap somewhat when they are doing the starting. Santari's comments about bootstrapping with your mother's credit card was kind of a good start, but don't go too long in that way. So if you have a good idea, you have a good team, and the points that Jiri had in his slides, that if you have the team and the traction and the opportunity there, don't go too far bootstrapping, because that's difficult. You will burn yourself and you will burn the team out doing only bootstrapping. So talk to the investors and talk to the funding agencies and look for opportunities to get more wind underneath your wings to get it flying.
Well, I would add to that how we are now building products and building our future is that we have a really concrete like a next milestone, whether that's a prototype or whether that's like a soft launch, and what we are trying to achieve with that, and of course keeping maybe 6 months of money on our bank account after that. So now, okay, we are at the prototype, it looks good. Okay, now who are the right people we should talk to about this? Now finding the second phase with really concrete goals for what we are hoping to have at the second milestone, and then widening our approach from there.
Well, can I just add to that? I mean, I think there's a pretty clear point where you should raise external funding, but I mean, it's like doping, it's performance enhancing drugs. I mean, you don't raise funding if you don't have anything you can multiply. I mean, you should bootstrap to a point where you can say hey, you know what? If we had 50 million, we could make all this happen. But I mean, you can't just start with that, because you see a lot of companies that start with the assumption that amount of money raised is some kind of like a success criteria. And if you're only starting a company to raise money, then I don't think you're going to be very successful. But I mean, I think it's important to understand like what is the milestone you should reach where it makes sense to actually raise funding to reach the even bigger next milestone, if that makes sense.
All right, another question here.
This is a personal question, actually. Will you continue making games, even if, I know, now game development market is growing, and it's easy to earn money on this market. Will you continue to making games, even if this market will in stagnation, or even if it will be much harder to earn money? Is the game development is the meaning of life for you all?
Can I just, if you know for a fact how to make money in gaming, then you should be here on stage. No, but at least for me, like when I left Disney 3 years ago, I promised myself I would never ever in my life work in games ever again. And 2 weeks later, I had my first game prototype running. So yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I have other company as well than the game company. I would make about 2.5 times more if I would work to my other company. So that's kind of a thing. Game company is really the thing I want to do.
Yeah, I like the startup life. Not growing up. I like
eating noodles and
maybe that's you. But I would say that I like the freedom. I like building something new. I also like building something that is meaningful. People often mix up like non-profits and all those charities, and also why, if you want to build something meaningful, why don't you run a non-profit? I think that a limited company is the best tools to drive your mission, because everybody understands your motive. It's clear. You are making money. Whether that's you are making mission, you're building your mission, you're making money. And when you have that money on your bank account, there is your freedom. Then you can do whatever you want. And I love that.
I would only add, as from investors' point of view, that stay stubborn in sense that stay in the industry. If you like games, if that's your passion, stay in the industry. Build a new company, have this kind of serial entrepreneurship mentality, but don't be stupid. If you can see that your game is not doing well, and there's a certain point that when you have to kill your darlings, as you can see what Supercells and Rovios and their successful companies has done, that in certain point you can see from the metrics, or you have a kind of a sixth sense saying that the game is not going to fly. Drop dead legs, move on, have another company or have another games project. But I'm not saying that leave the industry totally.
Would you still recommend developers make game if they fail? I don't know, like 5 different companies or 5 different games. Maybe they should do something else, or you think if it's a passion, then nothing matters.
What was probably somebody? I'm looking at Koope from the audience. Remember? Or Cyril, what was it? 48 games that Rovio did before.
Yeah. A lot.
Yeah. So, yes, exactly. So, nobody knows when the successful game will come, but probably there's some sort of a thin line between kind of being stubborn and being stupid. But
all right, another question from the audience.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Leonid, and let's imagine I have a gaming company, and I would like to move to Finland and take public funds. What should I do next? Or for example, if I don't want to move to Finland without public funds, if I want to move to Finland and be sure that if I move to Finland, I get public funds, who I have to go?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to give you a guarantee on that basis. Like, hey, I'm considering. Like, I mean, I think you do need to incorporate in Finland. Like move there for a while. But I mean, the reason all this public funding is available is because they're building the ecosystem. If you're not making an effort to be part of the ecosystem, then why the hell would I give you money if I'm the Finnish government? So I mean, obviously, when it comes to like really big companies, then they can have this discussion like, hey, if I'm Gameloft and I start a studio in Finland, can I get funding? And I'm sure that's a different discussion than with like, hey, if I as a single person move here, can I get money?
Okay, but whom I have to go? I mean, what organization I have to enter and talk to?
Talk to Kope.
And probably a question, Leonid. Do you live in St. Petersburg? Do you live here?
No, I live in Kiev and have studios in Kiev and Novosibirsk.
Okay, it's a bit further away, but buy a plane ticket, come to Finland, set up the studio there, start the dialogue with Tekes, go from there. What do you got to lose?
Okay, how many people do I need to employ in Finland to start a dialogue?
Probably none or one. You need to have a company there in Finland.
Oleg will tell about it in half an hour. Timur, хотел задать вопрос?
Hello, I have a question regarding the Finnish games industry in general. So, what do you think are the main differences as opposed to the other market countries and ecosystems in the US, for instance, or Germany, or wherever else? And how can an international company that has been recently set up an office in Helsinki, say gaming company, for instance, be involved in that industry, like in the community, let's say? Thanks.
I think yes.
Okay, I'll take that. So I think anecdotally, I was at a party in Berlin a while ago, and I was hanging out with the guys who run the two biggest gaming conferences in Germany, and they didn't know each other. I was the guy who introduced them to each other. So, the Finnish industry is very tight. Everybody knows everybody, and like all the stories about all the help you can get are true. I mean, you can still call the CEO of Supercell and ask for 15 minutes of his time to get advice, and he will give that. So I think that's the very unique, rare thing about Finland. Like we're all fighting against the rest of the world almost in a sense. So and if you're part of the community, like really, like if you just come over there, come to IGDA, have beers with us, and that's it, you're part of the gang.
Like 20 years ago, there was still like this worry that if there is an investment or we give a green light to some project, like getting a railroad to this city, someone might get rich. And if that guy gets rich, it's away from me. And that's quite odd. So I would say that especially in some industries like gaming industry, people are there, sharing ideas freely. When we, tell this that we are just, if we get this idea, we just go to people and we explain the idea. And then people, aren't you worried that they will steal your idea? Then, well, I mean, no, because it's not sort of part of the culture. And if they do, I really hope that they do it 10 times better than we could have ever done it.
I think one good example about this, how Finnish this game industry helps each other is that in Lappeenranta we are like a pioneers. There is no game industry in Lappeenranta before we started it, and so also this local kind of a support organization, they didn't have any kind of a good ways to help us. So what we did go to the neighbor town, and their local support unit, which entire idea is to help that town. They helped us, and they really don't get anything out of it than building this kind of community.
And I mean, I think Aako, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I think IGDA Finland is actually now helping IGDA Sweden get their shit together. And again, I mean, as Kope mentioned already, like we have a tough time with the Swedes, and we're still helping them out.
Yeah, and I think that back in the days when I did a lot of business with Chinese, going even further east than St. Petersburg, that they have a very neat saying that. Not the companies make the business, but the people make the business. And good people and good friends make good business. So basically I would say that, talk, if you're looking for Finland or whatever country or markets, talk with the companies who are already there. Talk with these Finnish companies. Talk the guys with a beer glass on your hand at the after parties or the white night parties. Talk with them, make friends, find mutual kind of interests, and start the dialogue from there. It's much, much more easier to start from there when you know somebody and you can knock on their door and go there and say, hi, do you remember me from St. Petersburg? And now I have this and this kind of project or idea of game. And how should I do it? Or could we do it together?
All right, we have probably one last question.
Hi guys, thank you for your speech. I don't know how to say it. Finland has a great culture, tales, Kalevala, for example, and now your industry is on the rise, but we still don't see any games, even from little teams which don't think about money and market, but even from them we don't see games about your myths, about your cultural background. And why so? Because we usually see about Chinese, we usually about American, about Japan, about China culture things, but we still don't think about, we still don't play games about Finnish heroes. Thank you. Why so?
I think one possible reason is the same as this language thing. So we already know that our audience is not in Finland. Our audience doesn't know anything about those Finnish tales, the culture what we have there. So when we are making those games, we are making it for the audience, and that might be one of the reasons.
Yeah, somebody needs to brand Kalevala properly. Our government is now busy with branding our education, so they don't really have time for Kalevala at the moment.
Well, we should call Peter Westerbacher. He's not with Rovio anymore, so maybe Kalevala is the next Angry Birds. I'll introduce you to Peter. We can talk about that.
All right. So I think if there are no more questions, that's okay. One last. И, кстати, сейчас будем еще победителей искать.
Yes, and they will be choosing the winner.
Get a prize.
Hi, I'm Dmitry, and actually it's going to be short and selfish. It's a question to Arto. You actually were answering the question about what are the criteria for investing or not investing in mobile game companies, and you mentioned that actually you haven't yet come to terms with Steam. So my question is, when, if or rather I would say when you come to terms with Steam, what's going to be those criteria for PC games?
Probably largely the similar that with mobile side, that there have to be a potential, a large commercial potential there with the game products. And I wouldn't say that it will happen during this year. Hopefully, we are kind of vigorously continuing with the negotiations with them. But let's see if we can get it done this year. So then it might be up and ready on the Q4.
They're a funding company. All they are interested about is money, right?
Yes.
It's not a bad thing.
No.
Good afternoon. We have this European Championship, soccer championship, in full swing in Europe at the moment, and we very often hear from bookmaker companies, stake companies, on people are betting on various countries, and the most people are betting on Germany. You, as people dealing with investments, could you tell us about the trends? What are the key considerations of investors if we compare them with the betting companies? What are they betting on at the moment in the gaming world?
Bookmakers, companies that can predict or try to predict the winners, and sometimes they're pretty much successful. So the question is, what do you think is the new trend from the point of view of investor? Like, what are you looking for right now? And maybe this is the last question for the rest of the guys. Like, what would you say is going to be the new black pretty soon in gaming? That's a difficult question.
Yeah,
yes,
it is, and I would say that based on the last 3, 4, 5 different trade shows that I have been, and probably many of the Finnish colleagues have been here on GDCs and Pocket Gamers and so on, I would say that the industry is somewhat going to wearables and virtual reality games and kind of a mixed reality games and kind of extending the mobility onto physical platforms also. That would be my kind of 2 cents on where the industry would be going and what would be the kind of a new new interesting areas.
Okay, thank you.
I'll stir it up a bit, answering this from more of the EdTech point of view, because we need to keep our core products quite, not say old-fashioned, but simple, because the devices and all that are not necessarily the most updated at the places where we want our games to be played. But I would say that EdTech is definitely going to ease of use with more and more complex systems where you can get lots and lots of data, and that includes like things that work on a tablet and that are connected to a physical thing, like a robot that works on a table, works on a platform, or like a tablet screen. And teachers don't have to understand what is going on, but they get analytics through digital learning.
All right. Do you have any ideas? It's okay not to have, because,
no, I'm happy to promote my own stuff. I mean, obviously, it's game discovery and game content discovery. Because, I mean, fact is that in all content businesses, we're now in a situation where there's too much good stuff. So if you're someone who, consumes entertainment, you have too many things to choose from. And this is why user acquisition costs are going up, because it's just so hard for a publisher to reach the right audience. So I think whoever can improve on that, if you can help people find the right content for them, obviously everybody is going to benefit.
All right.
Yeah, I think for a shorter time period, you can always look Supercell, because I think what they did with the Clash of Clans and what they now did with the Clash Royale will have in shorter term quite much influence on kind of a content what we will see in a mobile perspective. So synchronous gameplay when other companies are ready for that.
All right. Thank you very much. Давайте поаплодируем нашим панелистам.